So thanks for joining us for the federal relief and stimulus programs for small businesses during the COVID-19 crisis presentation today. We are very happy to do this presentation in conjunction with our partner Access South Florida. And we wanted to just provide a little bit of information as we get started. So we do have some call-in info here. In case you have some trouble with audio or with your Zoom call, you can use this phone number to dial in, and that way you will not have any interruptions in the presentation. So feel free to take note of that. If you have questions today, you can look on the little bottom bar on your Zoom window and see a Q&A box there. So if you click on that Q&A box, you can type in your questions and we'll take them towards the end of the presentation most likely. Any unanswered questions will be sent to the speakers afterwards. So if you send them to us with your name attached, that way we can get the answer back to you. If you do have other questions that you'd prefer to email us about, you can send those emails to patty@generator.com and we'll be sure to get back to you. Unfortunately, if you have technology issues while you're on the call with videos freezing or inability to hear, there's not much we can do just because of the number of people on the call. So to let you know ahead of time, we are recording the webinar and we will share it with all participants. It will be posted on our website and we'll send a follow-up email with the link to that video. So no worries if you're having a little bit of trouble hearing at certain points. So I'd like to welcome our speaker, Brian Van Hook, who you can see there. We also have Brianna Williams joining us on the call, who might add in at some points. They're from the Small Business Development Center at Florida International University in South Florida. And so we welcome them. And at this point, I will turn it over to Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you to Access. Thank you to Generator. Thanks to everybody. And I just want to thank you guys for setting this up. As you guys know, there is an alphabet soup out there in the community of all these programs that are available. EIDL, PPP, all these other ones. And so kind of what we'd like to do today is to focus on the specific programs, give you some information. I know a lot of people already have information specific to these different programs, but we'd like to kind of give you some general information and also some tips and some strategies and best practices in terms of how you can access them. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put into the chat a guide that our Florida SBDC network has pulled together. And this basically walks you through, as I said, the alphabet soup, through PPP, through EIDL, through EIDL Advance, and it walks you through those different programs and some different links and some different information. So first, as I mentioned, the acronyms, the Paycheck Protection Program. This is a program that's under the U.S. Small Business Administration. It was created under the CARES Act, and it, as the name implies, it is focused specifically on getting folks back on payroll, getting employees back. For this particular program, you can get 75% of your loan forgiven if you put 75%, you can get 75% forgiven if it's towards payroll. You can also get another 25% forgiven for non-payroll expenses. Any additional loan amounts that you use, those would be a 1% loan for an up to two-year term. And so we're encouraging folks to follow the instructions, to follow the guide for PPP, because if you don't follow the rules and you don't do things right, then you won't get it forgiven. And that's the most important part of PPP, is to get that that portion forgiven. What I'm also going to post into the chat is a really good article from Forbes that walks you through the PPP program and also 10 things that you need to know about the forgiveness portion. It's actually like a really good article, things to keep in mind. And for PPP, as I said, 75% can go towards payroll and it can be forgiven. 25% can go towards non-payroll, which it can include operational costs such as utilities, such as different rent, different things like that, debts. But what we're encouraging folks to do is to apply for all of the above, because the PPP is a little more restrictive in regards to payroll, and also it does have like that 8-week period that starts once the loan is approved. And then you have some of the other programs that are available too. And the caveat I want to give you is, I know that everybody is extremely nervous, extremely worried, because the SBA announced yesterday that they had lapsed funding, that basically they were not going to be approving new PPP loans, and also that they were not going to be issuing funds. So that is concerning that they lapsed funding because of the demand, but I can tell you the program will get refunded. I know that there's discussions on Capitol Hill today. We were hoping maybe for some news of an agreement or some things moving forward, but as we sit here today at about 1 o'clock, we haven't seen it. But I can guarantee you there is bipartisan agreement that this is a good program, that they want to get it funded. So I would not be surprised if the lapse was just over the weekend and there was some action on Monday, or some like an announcement of an agreement over the weekend. So the program will get funded. It's my understanding some of the banks are still accepting applications, the ones that had not closed off applications. They just weren't unable to process it. So I was going to encourage you, if you have already applied, just be in touch with your bank, be in touch with your lender, because they can keep you posted on the status. If you haven't applied already, don't let that stop you from applying, because from what we're understanding is banks are still accepting applications for those that had not closed off applications due to them receiving a lot of demand. And what we are recommending is that businesses for PPP, that they do start with a bank that they have a relationship with, a bank that knows you. But for some businesses, they don't have a relationship with a bank, or their bank is not offering PPP loans, or they are closed to applications because they've received a lot already. So if that's the case, now is your time to get the PPP loan. And if your bank isn't going to offer you the PPP loan, if they're not going to help you when we have this unprecedented disaster, our suggestion is to shop around. And the way that you shop around is with your deposits. So I just posted in the chat, let me see. I just posted in the chat a link that's going to go take you to a lender portal where you can look up for local lenders that are not that are making these loans. Let me post it again. I'm sorry. Okay, and just be aware that this link is active, but it might have been down due to demand. So try it a little bit later. But this is a link that can allow you to search for local lenders that are participating in the program. And as I said, if your bank is not making loans, if they're not making PPP loans, or they're not offering them, or they're closed off, other banks will make you a loan. Here in Miami, I know that there's a lot of community banks that have been very aggressive and have actually been kind of stealing some of the clients from some of these larger banks that they weren't able to get a PPP loan. And the community banks are more open. Obviously, they have roots in the community. So we've seen a lot of activity and a lot of demand, and we also have heard that those banks have been getting the loans out, the funds out. I would also encourage you, there are a lot of other lenders that are getting onto the SBA program for PPP. And also there's been some online lenders and things like that, such as PayPal, that is offering those as well. So I would encourage you to research all of those different options and look at what makes best for you. But just be aware that the lender, if it's a community bank or another bank, they might ask for your deposits because they do want some incentive to kind of work with you and to be part of it. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, is that you can get access to this funding. And we can say as of this week, we were seeing funding getting out to businesses from PPP. Obviously the lapse put a hold on that, but we were seeing actually funds getting out to people. And so we would also encourage you, as it relates to PPP, to set up 2 separate accounts if you're applying for PPP and also any other disaster funding. That's going to help you to track the funds and make sure that you're spending it appropriately and also within the different guidelines that are available. So if you're getting a PPP loan and also an economic injury disaster loan, an EIDL, you should have 2 different accounts that those funds are going into. Don't commingle the funds, because that'll make sure you spend it appropriately. Also, when you're applying for the EIDL loan, you're going to want to disclose that you already have, that you've applied for a PPP loan, or also that you have received PPP funds, because there is concerns from the government over duplication of benefits. So they don't want to see you get the PPP loan and use it for the exact same thing that you're using the EIDL loan for. And what we're recommending is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. There is kind of like two components to it. The first is a new program that they offer that's specific to like an EIDL advance, where they were offering up to $10,000. There was, and that was whether you're approved or declined. There was some clarification recently that it's up to $10,000, but it was $1,000 per employee, up to 10,000. And we do know a lot of businesses that were able to get those funds. Specific to the larger EIDL, generally that program goes up to $2 million, and it's a 3.75% interest rate. And it's a 30-year term. It could be 20 or 30-year term. For that particular program, the concern that we had was that the program didn't have a lot of funds. So the issue was that the businesses weren't getting the disbursements they should get. So we were seeing businesses that were getting $35,000, $45,000 when really they would be eligible to get up to $250,000, $400,000. And the general sense was that that was because the program had received a lot of demand and needed additional funding. So my hope is when Congress provides additional funds for the PPP program, there's also been discussion of adding additional funds to the EIDL program so that they can make larger loan amounts, so they could keep up with the demand.
Brian, could we pause and answer a few questions that are coming through our Q&A box?
Sure, let's go. Let's do it.
Cool. So I can start reading off some of the questions. So the first one is, Brian, have you heard of startup money coming down the pike?
Startup money, is it specific from SBA or other group or other organizations?
I'm guessing SBA.
Yes, we have heard SBA funds getting on the street and getting into people's accounts. We also know that there's a lot of other organizations here in Miami-Dade County and South Florida that are offering funds as well, whether it's restaurant-related funds. I know that the FIU School of Hospitality had a grant program. I know that Samuel Adams had a grant program. Facebook has a grant program. There's also been a couple of other local mission-based lenders, such as Accion, Opelika CDC, Miami Bayside Foundation. And for those three organizations in particular, I know that they traditionally do work with startups and also restaurants, because, you know, sometimes restaurants are a little tougher in terms of, you know, different commercial lending and things like that. So we have actually heard of funds getting on the street and getting out to businesses.
Awesome. Next question is, all of my employees are independent contractors. I need that money for my rent and utilities. Are there any programs that can help me?
The issue with some of these programs is for the PPP, generally for them, they are requiring that independent contractors apply on behalf of themselves. For the EIDL program, I believe there is eligibility for businesses that have 1099 employees as well. I would encourage you to review the website and the information that's provided, because I think that they are pretty clear in terms of what's eligible and what's not eligible for those particular programs. I would also steer you to that link that I did put in the chat for the Florida SBDC guide, because I think that that guide also does walk you through some of those requirements.
Great. Next question. How about self-employed as only one individual? Can they qualify for PPP?
Yes, you can qualify for PPP. I know that there is a specific way that you're going to apply for that. I would encourage you to go to the PPP website to look. There was kind of a new application that was rolled out last week. The guidance was a little slow to come out, but I think that the guidance from Treasury for the banks did come out this week. And basically what we've been hearing for folks is if you are self-employed, kind of sole proprietor, you will approach your bank just like we're recommending to businesses. And there is an application for you to submit. And then whenever you submit the application, they will follow up with you from the bank to ask for some additional information. And I think you would want to look on the PPP website because there is a specific form that you need to fill out. I'm not sure if it's the personal financial statement. It had one of those government numbers like 4520S or something like that. But there was a form that you need to fill out. that the banker is going to ask you for. So what we've been recommending is to follow the guidance that's on the PPP website, to start working on that form, and then when they call you back, you can basically have it ready to go and submit it to do it. But we have heard of some folks applying that way. Also, I have heard of folks applying to PayPal regarding the sole proprietor. So I would encourage you also to check those avenues as well, especially if you're not hearing back from a local bank.
Got it. And then the next thing, if you are having trouble copying and pasting the links in the chat box, you can just click on them and they'll work and take you to the new window.
Okay.
We have a comment. I went to Regions Bank downtown Miami to open an account, and they said I wouldn't be able to apply for the loan because you need to be a member of the bank. Okay, so that's just an update for that bank. Somebody's asking what's the best program to apply for. I'm guessing like right now, if there are applications open, probably PPP, correct?
I would say for the caveat I would give you is that the lapse in appropriations, you're not allowed to, basically the application portal for the EIDL program is down just because they're waiting for the additional funding so that they can reactivate it. If you've already applied for the EIDL, then you're already in process, you're already in the queue, and they're processing those, but you obviously can't submit a new application. For PPP, I would say we did start seeing this week funds getting out to businesses. Obviously for that loan, if you follow the guidelines regarding payroll, you could get 75% of that forgiven. As I noted, it is a 2-year term, 1% interest for anything that's outside of the 75% for payroll forgiven, and then the 25% that's additional. So that is a pretty good loan, but I would strongly encourage you to apply for both PPP and EIDL, because there's going to be a lot of expenses that you're not going to be able to cover under PPP besides payroll and that 25%. The EIDL, you can use that for things that you're not using PPP. Like the biggest thing we hear from businesses right now is about rent, paying rent, paying fixed debts that they've racked up since they've been closed or since COVID-19 came up. Obviously any other kind of operational costs or utilities. So we're encouraging folks to primarily use the PPP for payroll because of the forgiveness aspect, and then to put any other expenses that they have on the EIDL. And the good thing about the EIDL, once you're approved for like above the $10,000 that you can receive, that's something where you can draw down what you need, because for those EIDLs, you only pay interest on what you draw down. So you don't have to take the full amount that you're approved for if you only need a certain amount. And actually, for a lot of businesses, we're also recommending that they request an additional loan amount if they see that they're having more economic impact, because there could be a delay from the time you're approved until you get the funds dispersed. And generally, we don't encourage people to request a loan modification before you're approved, because that could delay the process. But after you're approved, you can go back to SBA. You would basically just write them a letter, and then you would also attach any kind of relevant financial documents to back up what you're saying, and you can get additional funding on your loan. So that's something to definitely keep in mind.
Great. Can you submit applications for the PPP with more than one bank?
We're discouraging folks from doing that. I know that I have heard of some people that have done it. We would not encourage you to do that because there's issues with delaying your application, kind of pulling your application. So what we would recommend you do is, if you don't think that the application is moving, or you want to go to another bank because you heard that one of your fellow business owners got funded there and it was a quick process, there is a process where you need to email them, or you need to write like a letter and request that your application be withdrawn. And then once you get the confirmation from them, then you can apply to another bank. But I would strongly encourage you, don't apply to multiple banks because that could impact your ability to get the funding.
Got it. Next question is, have they started dispersing any of the EIDL funds? And how are they notifying people who applied whether they are being processed or not?
I would tell you guys, we did see this week EIDL funding coming out, both on the EIDL Advance and on the regular EIDL. As I noted, the EIDL, the larger amount, it was a lot smaller than some businesses were expecting. So my hope is when they receive additional funding, it will be the larger amount. But we did start seeing funding coming out this week on EIDL, and that generally tracked with what SBA said, because they kind of redid the website and the application, and it was on April 1st, and they said within 14 days, funds would start getting out. And so this week we did start seeing funds coming out. So they did kind of follow up on that.
Got it. Next question. I received an EIDL advance for an LLC. However, I am an officer for a nonprofit. Will this affect the EIDL advance for the nonprofit?
That is a little more technical. We haven't had that situation before. What I would recommend is maybe to review some of the SBA information that's on the website, or you can definitely call the customer service number or shoot them an email and request some clarification. I don't specifically have that answer because we haven't seen that situation before. But I would encourage you to kind of review some of the information that's out there and maybe reach out to customer service or maybe reach out to SBA via email. Just be aware that they are receiving a lot of calls and emails and things like that. So just be a little patient. But I would encourage you to check with them on that because it's a little more technical than we've seen, at least so far.
If a single individual owns 3 or 4 different companies, can he apply for a different loan for each company, or is he limited just to one single loan?
No, you can apply. The main factor that they have is that you file business taxes for each business entity. So if you do file business taxes and you have a tax ID for each one, then it shouldn't be a problem for you to apply for the different programs.
Do you have any knowledge about the EIDL only being $1,000 per employee?
Yes, that's what I said previously. They did clarify that. Initially, it was $10,000 for everybody, whether you're approved or denied. And then they came back and did some clarification that it was up to $10,000, $1,000 per employee. So that was a change. I know that a lot of people were a little frustrated by that. But I think that was, I don't, I'm not representing SBA, but I think that was due to maybe some of the funding limitations. So I would be interested if that was changed once they get additional funding.
Okay, and then the last question for now, you went over it a little bit, but just as a reminder, the question is, I tried applying for the EIDL program yesterday and they were out of funds too. Do you know if there's talks/hopes for more funding for that program?
Yes, I mentioned that at the beginning that they did lapse funding this week. There are discussions, negotiations going on in DC. We were hopeful that maybe there might be some news or some discussion today. I think that it's going to continue over the weekend, so I wouldn't be surprised if there is some announcement of an agreement. But I think that people shouldn't worry too much because I think that there's bipartisan agreement that PPP needs more funding. I also think there's bipartisan agreement that EIDL needs additional funding. So that's a good starting place. So I think that we should see something quick. My hope is that it's just over the weekend that it lapses and then things get moving early next week. So just kind of monitor, however you get your news. And I'm sure that there'll be an announcement, at least over the weekend or early next week, and things will get rolling. And I can tell you for PPP, the banks are really moving quickly. And for EIDL, as I mentioned, we were seeing some movement on that in terms of businesses actually seeing funding.
Thanks. So now we can pause. We do have a couple more questions, but we can take those at the end. Love the engagement here. It's super great. So yeah. Brian, if you want to continue.
Sure. I was just going to mention on the EIDL, one of the other suggestions that we have for the business owners is SBA is seeing very high demand. Unfortunately, right now, there's not a really good system for you to check the status of your application. But if you apply for an EIDL, you will get an application number that should start with a 2 or a 3. If you have that number, save that number, make sure you keep it in a safe place next to like your jewels and any kind of valuables, because that is your number that you're going to follow up with SBA to check the status. It's my understanding the only real way you can check is to call the customer service, but we have not heard that people have had a lot of success checking on the status or kind of finding out what's going on. Just due to the demand. So I would encourage you to kind of keep that number. The only way that I've really heard right now is to call the customer service number. I don't think if you email them right now, you'll be able to see. And I've seen some people trying to log in online with like their username and password, but I don't know if they were successful in terms of checking the status. So I would just encourage you to keep that number. And then at least what we've heard right now is basically calling the customer service number and checking. Sorry, do we have any other questions, or you want me to keep going?
We could take a couple more questions before you keep going. Let's see. Okay, so some of these are a little more specific. Are you able to apply for an EIDL if you have a line of credit with a bank?
Actually, they traditionally you would not be able to, because they would consider that credit elsewhere. I would encourage you to go ahead and apply and see, because they did change the program requirements a little bit for COVID-19. So obviously, the first recommendation is always to start with your bank, see if they can give you some additional funds on your line, if there's anything they can do to defer payments, things like that, that can help you get more cash flow in your business. But I would say generally, SBA does not allow you to get a loan if you have credit elsewhere, or they do charge you a higher rate. But I would say for the EIDLs for COVID-19, there were some specific changes to the program. So I would encourage you to check the SBA website and review that, because I wouldn't want to say you're completely excluded, because they did make some program changes. So I'd refer you to the SBA website.
Awesome, and that's all the questions for right now.
And on that topic, I just wanted to note for a lot of the business owners watching, what we've been recommending in terms of a roadmap for the businesses is to start with any loans that you have currently. So if you have a commercial loan, obviously I said contact your lender and request to see if they can kind of defer your payments. The lenders that we've heard about have been very open to doing that. Obviously they want to keep your business open. They want to keep you as a client. So they've been very receptive to providing that assistance to businesses. Secondly, if you have an SBA loan, reach out to the lender as well. SBA is offering deferments regarding 7A loans, 504 loans. So we'd encourage you to check into that. Also, if you have a previous disaster loan, that does not exclude you from applying for a disaster loan for COVID-19. But SBA also did offer relief for those disaster loans. I think that the deferment was 6 months. But what you should do is you should contact SBA regarding that to request it. I had heard from some folks they thought it was automatic. I always tell people, don't assume things are automatic. You should always follow up and request it just to make sure and be thorough that you're going to get it. So I would encourage you to follow that. Also, I did want to mention regarding insurance. A lot of businesses have been asking us regarding business interruption insurance. Historically, pandemics were covered under business interruption, but starting in 2003, because of SARS and some of the other pandemics that were out there, insurance companies did start excluding pandemics from business interruption insurance. So it's like a lot of those commercials say, you think you're covered for this, but you're actually covered for that. So we are encouraging businesses, not just related to COVID-19 and getting assistance, but also as part of business continuity and being better prepared, to check their policies, check with their agent, and find out, are they specifically covered for a pandemic under business interruption? I would say vast majority of businesses are not, but it is worth you checking with your agent and seeing. And also, it might be something that you want to add given COVID-19 moving forward. So it could be something that you could, make a plan in terms of adding that for down the road so that you might be covered. So those are things that you can explore with your local agent. And in terms of some additional suggestions or ideas, what we're also encouraging businesses to do is to take advantage of a lot of those local programs that are available. I mentioned a couple of them, like some of the business improvement districts, some of the community redevelopment agencies. They are offering some small grants for businesses. So we would encourage you, if you have a business improvement district, if you have a CRA where your business is located, to reach out to them, because some of those are offering grants or low interest loans for businesses impacted by COVID-19. Also, there is assistance available from some of those micro lenders, as I mentioned, Miami Bayside Foundation, Accion, Opa-locka CDC. There's countless other groups that can assist your business as well. I would also encourage you, depending on what your industry is, there are some industry specific programs, whether you're a grocery store, whether you're a restaurant. There are some different, whether in your hospitality industry, there are a number of programs that are out there here in South Florida that are available for the businesses. So it's worth your time to look into it because it might be a way for you to get some additional capital. I would tell you for a lot of those programs, it was a lot smaller funding. They were basically offering more grants and more loans, but smaller amounts. But it's still something that can help your business. I know that Facebook has a grant program that's been publicized for small businesses. Sam Adams also has a program that's available too. So I'd encourage you to check into some of those programs because they could really help your business out. And the last thing I was going to mention was about your employees. Definitely reach out to your employees, kind of like check in with them. I know a lot of folks had to make some tough decisions in terms of laying off employees or furloughing employees. But the biggest thing that everybody's been doing right now is to stay in contact, to stay in touch. And so even if it's something where you're setting up weekly conference calls or weekly Zoom calls or Microsoft team meetings and things, just being kind of visual and seeing people like we're doing now is good, even though I know a lot of people are rough right now. People don't have their hair cut, their beards aren't trimmed, but I think everybody's kind of dealing with the social distancing in their own ways. But I can tell you in terms of connecting with your team, that is something that's been really helpful to kind of keep those bonds together and also just keep the communication lines open. And we would encourage you, definitely if you're applying for PPP, if you're receiving PPP funds, make every effort to hire back your employees. I know some employees, their situation might change, but the intent of the legislation and the funds is to bring your employees back and bring them back on payroll. So we would encourage you to first reach out to your employees, but if somebody has a situation where they can't or won't come back to work, or they find another job, there is a process you can follow, and you can check with your lender that makes you the loan on what you need to do to document that, and then you can basically hire an additional person to replace that person. But you do have to make every effort to hire them first, and you can't hire more people than you had. You can basically get back to your payroll that you had prior to COVID-19. So I would encourage you to check into that, but also just keep, be empathetic, be in touch with your employees, like stay in touch. Because I think for this, it's easy for folks to lose touch with their employees or with their boss or their employers. And so I would encourage you to kind of keep that in mind because at the end of the day, a business is people. It's not just numbers. It's not just revenue and sales. And so you really can't run the business and be back up and running if you don't have those businesses, those employees back for your business. So I was going to stop for a minute just in case we got any additional questions.
Yeah. One question is, do you know of CRA or other government who are offering assistance to nonprofits?
I would say there is a Florida Association of Nonprofit Organizations. I think they're based in Jacksonville or they're up north. I noticed they did have some information on different nonprofit programs that were available. I know also for the EIDL program, nonprofits are eligible to apply. I don't know the specific eligibility related to PPP, but I know that there was some chambers of commerce and some other groups that were applying for PPP. So I would encourage you to check the eligibility for both of those programs. And I don't know specific to nonprofits, but I would start with that Florida Association of Nonprofit Organizations because I do think they will have some resources statewide that were available. I did hear about some different localities that were looking into programs specific to arts, culture, things like that. So I think they were looking at nonprofits that were available, that were active in those areas. But I don't have specific information on nonprofit programs besides what's available from the Small Business Administration.
Cool, that's all the questions for right now.
Okay. And then I was also going to mention for a lot of businesses, well, we've been talking about in terms of strategies, as I know right now people don't want to think about reopening. They're kind of worried about the day-to-day and getting capital and trying to stay afloat. But basically, let's think optimistically, guys. Let's think realistically. We will reopen at some point. The economy will reopen. It's likely to be in phases as I discussed, but there is going to be a time that we're going to reopen. What you need to start doing is planning now for when you reopen. And how you're going to do that, that can include not just like marketing and social media and things like that, but also your business strategy, your operations, your HR, obviously your financial is very important as well. So we're talking to businesses now about doing that. If you do need assistance in that area, Our website for SBDC is sbdc.fiu.edu. And that's our website that you can go to register for no cost assistance from SBDC. We can obviously help you with access to capital, but we also are really gearing up to help a lot of businesses with strategy operations, marketing, kind of gearing back up to open and just the new normal. And I would say we're also not territorial. There are other groups in the community that also offer similar assistance, whether that's Prospera, whether that's SCORE, whether that's women's business centers, MBDA centers, things like that. There are other organizations in the community, and we all work as a team. We're all very collaborative. So whenever I'm on webinars, I do shout outs for those guys. I know that they do shout outs for us as well. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that type of assistance, because that's really going to help you out. In terms of kind of weathering the pandemic right now, obviously if you're a restaurant, obviously if you have anything to do with food or groceries, you're on a lot of the delivery services, whether that's Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, things like that. A lot of businesses we're noticing are on those websites, are on those apps and delivery services, but the issue they're having is they're not effectively marketing that on social media or on their website. So we would encourage you to feature prominently on your website what delivery services you're on, because some businesses are not on all of them. So we would encourage you to emphasize that, because I can just give you guys an example. Like, I live off of Berg Road here in Miami, and the first thing I did when I got on DoorDash was I looked for all the local businesses that are right down the street from me and made sure I added those as my favorites. So that way, if I'm looking for food to be delivered, I can start with my local businesses that I know have been down the street. And I actually started with the business I know are family owned, or the ones that are locally owned that have been around, that aren't like just a chain like McDonald's or Burger King and things like that, because I want to support those local businesses. And also the cool thing is, on some of those apps, actually when you're putting your order in, obviously you can tip the delivery driver, but there's also a function where you can support the local business by adding additional money to your order. So you can add like $5, $10, things like that. Think about it, that actually goes a long way to help that business if you get a lot of people to do it. So we would strongly encourage you, if you're on those delivery services, to make sure you update your website, you update social media to reflect what services you're on, because that's a way for your local loyal customers to find you and to take advantage of those services. And obviously for delivery services, it's not just a pick up and drop off service, because if they're the ones that are doing the delivery and they're handling the order, but you're the one that actually has to make the food, you have to make sure that it's a seamless process, that it gets to the business, to the person that ordered quick. But also, if there's any screw ups, they're not going to blame Uber Eats, or they're not going to blame DoorDash. They're going to blame you, because you're the restaurant. So you really need to get your process down on how you handle those orders, how you process them, making sure the packaging is correct, things aren't leaking, making sure you're setting things up where it's going to be hot when you get it. Like, I actually ordered a pizza from a local pizza place, not just like a Pizza Hut or something. Man, that was the hottest pizza I ever got. I got that pizza and I had to let it sit for like a minute or two because it was pretty hot. And so I can guarantee you, I'll remember the next time if I want a hot pizza, I'm going to go to that place and order from them, because I got it really quick and I got it really hot, almost too hot. And I would encourage you to obviously pay attention to that. The second thing I was going to mention was another strategy has been gift cards. I think it's been mentioned on a lot of other webinars. It's been mentioned online, but gift cards are a great way for you to get some cash into your business. Obviously, it's specific to retail, to restaurants, but obviously services as well. If you're talking about landscaping, if you're talking about different services that are offered, like hair salons and things like that I know are impacted, nail salons. So we would encourage you to look into that. If you don't already have a gift card program, there's some really good websites that are available to kind of walk you through how to set up a gift card program and what to do. And that's obviously something you should emphasize on your website. You should emphasize that on your social media, because that's a way for people to buy from you, even though they can't come to your shop physically or your restaurant, and they don't have to spend it right away, but you get the cash right away. You get that cash and it goes into your business. And then obviously they can give it as a gift. They can give it to, use it later on. And we've also been seeing that folks have been very active in local chambers, local business groups, and they've been very, very open about kind of what they're doing, what they're seeing, and what they're hearing about business. I was part of a group the other day, and one of the business owners there mentioned about a local business that is kind of like a wine bar, but they also serve food. And they noted that they had only received one order that day, and the order was from the person that was mentioning it. And so, actually, as a result of us just talking about it on the call, one of the people on the call, they ordered 4 bottles of wine from the place. So I think that they would, that's a good way for you to get the word out and kind of spread the local, the buy local message. So I'll stop for a minute just in case we got any additional questions.
Yeah, we have one more question. It just says, then I can apply PPP and EIDL and the 10 advance loan as a business or an independent contractor.
So you can apply as an independent contractor. You are eligible to apply for PPP. You also are eligible to apply for the EIDL, and then you would also apply for the EIDL advance. Right now, what happens is they did have an EIDL application that was available prior to March 30th. They took that down, and right now all they're offering is the EIDL advance. You apply for that, and it's a very short application, and then you do get SBA following up to ask for more information. So that's when you would kind of get moving on the additional EIDL. So yeah, you're definitely eligible to apply for all 3.
Cool, and that was the last question that we had.
Okay, and those are pretty good questions. I was gonna maybe throw it back to you, Patty, and you, Lauren. Was there anything I didn't cover or anything you'd like me to dive into a little more? So I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Hey, this is Joe. This is Joe Generator. I had one that we got emailed to us from someone in South Florida who's on the webinar. They're asking, and we've had a fair number of questions about this. There's a lot of confusion around rehiring and the time frame for rehiring. Specifically, do they need to have everyone? I'm reading the question here, so I don't have the date in front of me. But there's a date certain that people need to be rehired by. Can they be underneath that number until that date, or do they need to be at that number up until that date to be eligible for the loan forgiveness under PPP?
I would say for us, we've been trying to get some clarification on that as well. We've got a lot of questions on it too. I think that there is some information out there, and I might have to send it to you guys after the webinar that has been clarified specific to that. I would refer you guys maybe to that link that I put that was the Forbes article that did talk about kind of some questions and answers related to the forgiveness portion, because I think it might be covered in there. If not, then I do have another link that I can send you guys after that you might be able to share, because I know that we have got other questions on that. So I guess my question is, I have information on that, I just can't give it to you right this minute. So sorry.
And then for the this is about pandemic unemployment assistance. I don't know how much of this is in your realm, but just where Florida, these questions generally, what's the state of Florida's current process with pandemic unemployment assistance? And we can, if you don't have an answer, we can follow up after the call as well and just share what we find.
I know generally, like everybody, we've been following that. I know that we've had a lot of our clients and businesses we've been working with that they've been trying to access the program. Like a lot of programs, it received unprecedented demand, and the systems were kind of having trouble dealing with a lot of the people. I did know that the governor kind of assigned somebody new to cover the program and kind of get it back on track. I think it seems like it was a technology issue, also a personnel issue, like having more people to process applications. So I think that those have been underway, but I can sit here today and say that it's working well and that we've heard a lot of businesses have had good experience, because I think that the program has had some challenges. So I would just encourage you, we've at least directed a lot of people to Department of Economic Opportunity, because that's the agency through Florida that's been managing it. But I know it has been difficult to get responses, to get feedback, and things like that. So I would just encourage you. I know it's not easy to say, but be patient. Just document everything in terms of your outreach to the agency and kind of things that the status as you see it, and then just follow up. But I know that they did make a change for kind of who was overseeing the program, and also I did see a lot of discussion on some new technology and added some more bodies to help process applications.
And I'm building off this question, but relating to one question we've been getting a lot in office hours is the virtual one-on-ones that we do with people. Is they're wondering how, whether that's for, say, for a sole proprietor or just for a business that's been shut down and it's owner operated, how they might think about themselves taking pandemic unemployment assistance and the new federal, the $600 a week kind of weekly edition versus participating in the Paycheck Protection Program, and how those two loan forgiveness, the loan forgiveness portion of the payroll protection program attached to payroll. Any thoughts on how that interacts with the potential for the owner themselves on the unemployment assistance, the kind of elevated unemployment assistance that's available right now?
I mean, I think that would be something that I would definitely recommend when you're applying for PPP and when you're in touch with your lender to just discuss some of those, because some of those are things that information that the local lender would have related to the program and kind of eligibility and things like that. I know that that's a tough decision for any business in terms of like employees and also kind of what to do with them. So we've been kind of saying for businesses that, you need to make the best decision based on your situation and based on your outlook. Because I think for a lot of folks, they're looking at it where based on their industry, once we say you can reopen, they might take some very big steps in terms of social distancing and protection and things like that. But they won't be as tough to reopen as you would for some other ones. Like think about anything with event management that's like 50 or more, groups of 50 or more people. We're hearing that it might be not until next fall that people will start doing bigger events and things like that. So obviously those industries are going to see a longer downtime, and their new normal isn't going to be kind of really back until, for a while. So we're just encouraging businesses to kind of take a look at your business situation, take a look at your industry, kind of look at best practices, but also take advantage of your colleagues, because a lot of times businesses know other business owners in the same industry and they don't even think, because you're kind of running your race, you're not looking to what other people are doing. And a lot of businesses now, because of social media, because of Zoom, things like that, people are being more interactive and they're getting a lot of really great tips from other business owners, like not just from, I went to this bank and they gave me a loan, but also things that you're talking about like that related to unemployment, related to eligibility and things like that. So I would encourage you to kind of cast a wide net and talk to a lot of different groups and businesses, because for that, it is a little different depending on what your business is and your industry is.
And one that was it was playing out early last week and then is now important in a new context. On Friday, as you know, they opened up the Paycheck Protection Program applications to independent contractors and freelancers. And then on Wednesday, the program, was at its upper limit on the CARES Act budget allocation. A lot of questions were from people who were in the process of applying, but didn't get the application completed as they were preparing documentation because of their income as an independent contractor. Do you have any advice for, I'm looking at questions we've been receiving, do you have any advice for people who are independent contractors or freelancers to help them prepare their applications when they've been taking self-draws, or how to document their revenue and information for purposes of the payroll protection application, as we anticipate a lot of those will be the people who apply first in the new round?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question, because I do have something on that. Let me see about how to calculate the loan amount. So let me actually post that in the chat. So actually, I do have an answer for that question. And I would encourage you too, that if you are, if you haven't applied, you can still apply. Just be aware. So I did post that in the chat. That's regarding PPP and sole proprietors, and regarding kind of your eligibility and calculations for the loan amount. So that's something I would steer you towards. If you haven't applied yet, it's my understanding from some of the banks that they are still accepting applications, but that they're just obviously not going to be able to approve it or disperse any funds until the funding is returned, like they give the funding back. But I would encourage you to keep working on your application, work on the documentation that's needed and submit it or get it ready to submit, because the program is going to resume hopefully like early next week. And so just don't let that deter you from kind of keep moving forward.
Cool. And then another question, I'll do this my last one, and then I'll maybe turn it over if anyone has any additional questions. If not, we just want to leave it open for any last thoughts from you, and thank you. But a lot of questions we've been getting have been around how, what number of employees they should begin when they take the payroll protection program. What's the base number of employees that the reduction would be judged against? And so in other words, and so what they kind of start off as for determining whether or not they maintained underneath the
I
person's.
think what they look at, don't quote me on the date, I think it's like February 15th or February 20th or something like that. They look at that period. And then it is specific on the application, and it's specific on the website. They mentioned that. So they basically know what the date is. And what it is you have to return back to that level. And as I said, though, sometimes you're going to reach out to those employees and they have unemployment, they don't want to come back, or they got another job, things like that. You do need to make every effort to get the folks that were previously on payroll back on payroll. And you need to get that amount. But if you do have people that don't come back for whatever reason, you can still get somebody else to replace them. You just need to document that you tried to reach out and hire those people. Like, you need to have some good documentation that you just didn't hire somebody else and not reach out to the other people. But I think that it is specific on the application, or it is specific on the SBA website regarding some of the rules and regulations. So I would encourage you to check that, because I don't want to give you a specific date, because most likely it would be wrong, just based off all the numbers and acronyms and things I'm trying to deal with.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I'm pretty sure it's February 15th, but I don't want to have anybody quote me on that. But I agree. One of the questions that just came through is asking if we can include the links in the follow-up email. And Patty from our team will do that. So as the links that Brian shared, we'll send as a follow-up. Also, I want to say that we'll be making this webinar available on our website. I don't know if it'll be today, but within the next 48 hours, we'll have this available on our generator emergency resource page for South Florida. And we want to thank Access Helps, the Lucas and the city and Microsoft teams and everyone involved with the effort for making this possible. And most of all, thank you to Brian for your time and all this engagement. And any last thoughts from you before we go?
No, I just want to reiterate thanks to City and thanks to Access Helps and to you guys for organizing this and everybody else. I think this is a great resource. This is a great team that you guys have. And I've just been impressed because I've seen some of the other webinars. I haven't been able to be on all of them, but I was like, man, that's really cool, the topics you guys have out and the information. So I'm really happy that you guys are doing them, but that you're also recording it and getting the information out after, because that's the biggest thing right now is there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of programs that are available. And from us, we've just been seeing people have trouble navigating everything and knowing where to go. And also you hear a rumor, you got to chase down the rumor on this. So it is really important to get out really good, actionable information. And that's what you guys are doing. So that's why we were happy to partner with you on the webinar. And like I told you guys, like, look, this is unprecedented. For me, I'm a disaster guy by nature, by experience. And I've worked on everything from Katrina all the way to like earthquakes in Washington, D.C. And I've never seen anything like this. And I've just been so impressed about our South Florida business community, a lot of the different organizations, just how collaborative everybody is, and knowing that everybody has resources, everybody has personnel and expertise that they can bring to bear. And that's why I think we're going to get through this, and we're going to be stronger and better afterwards, because everybody's working together. And I know for a lot of the business owners we talked to, it's been a lot of tears, it's been a lot of anxiety, because this isn't like a normal hurricane that we experience where you have something move through and, within 2 to 3 days, we're back up rebuilding and putting up, temporary, the blue roofs and things like that. This is something that's been an ongoing thing, and we really don't know when things are going to be back to normal. So I would just encourage the business owner to, really focus on day to day. What can you get done that day? Make a task list, follow up on 2 to 3 things, knock those out, and then focus on other things. Because if you have a list of 500 things, it's just going to be, kind of swamp you, overwhelm you to get them all done. And second, I like on a lot of the other webinars, people are recommending to take breaks. Like, I know a lot of people are at their computer, they're on Zoom, they're doing things like that, but literally go outside, go for a walk. Obviously take your precautions, social distancing, all that, but go take a walk, go outside, get some fresh air, walk around your house, do some exercises, do yoga. you really need to take breaks, because I think for a disaster, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And a lot of businesses are trying to do a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time, and we're seeing that they're getting burned out. And so I would just encourage you to focus on specific tasks you can get done for that day. Take breaks. Also, as I said, kind of connect with your team. Also connect with any organizations that you're in, whether it's EO, any other chambers, things like that. Really be active with those groups, because that also is a way to hear about other things that are going on and things you can take advantage of.
Love it.
Thank you guys again.
Our pleasure. And for everybody on the webinar, one of the things we really pride ourselves on at our company is one-on-one engagement. We've done well over 100 one-on-one calls with the businesses registered. We'll be sending another invitation out following this. Please do sign up to engage with our team, and we'll do everything we can to help, especially as Brian said, as we're preparing for round 2 of all of the activities. So Brian, thank you so much. We'll follow up, and please, if anybody has any questions, reach out to us in the interim, and we'll pass it along. And stay safe and healthy, and appreciate everyone's time today. And thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Take care. Be safe.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Brian.